Hey, hello, everybody. Facebook will be with you in 1 second. I'm sure there's millions of people watching this,
Yeah.
or like three, my mom, my brother, and Chuck and Cara. Okay.
Well, Chuck's here.
So
We're pretty excited actually for today's call. So while he's pulling that up, maybe I'll do a quick introduction. So for the past, I don't know, it's been about 6 months to about a year. John and I have been working together on the Mortgage Broker Builder. As you've seen, a lot of different stuff coming out, and we're starting to do these weekly shows. He's been helping people across the board in the mortgage industry after leaving a different position that he had, which I believe that he's going to be telling a little bit of that story today, which is really cool. And so really what we wanted to do is share with you the origins of this and our mission and what we're trying to do and how we can support loan officers and mortgage brokers and bankers, even if the market is changing, which the market is definitely changing. And so the purpose of today's call was to give kind of a lay of the land going from, I believe what John said was going from the push button mortgage world to a world now where rates are higher, business is more competitive, it's more difficult to find loans, it's not as easy. One of the things I always like to tell people is that when the tide goes out, you can figure out who's not wearing pants. And so there's a lot of people out there right now not wearing pants. And so a big part of our mission, and again, I don't want to take any of what John's going to be talking about here, but a big part of it is to help people figure out how to succeed in today's market. So without further ado, I'll let John kind of dive into some of his introduction and tell a little bit of his story and tell you about what we're doing here at Mortgage Broker Builder.
awesome. Thanks, Josh. Do you guys see a slide that says a look at the forgotten art of selling? Awesome. So I actually do a bunch of things, right? My journey goes back into the 90s, right? When I got started, Bill Clinton was our president. So like that just kind of gives you a little bit of context as to like where I started from and kind of how we got here. But what we've kind of seen happen over the last couple of years, and it's a little bit disappointing. I'm somebody that loves sales. It's ingrained in me as far as like the sale being a really part, is I've kind of seen our industry go from one of a trusted advisor. I still have people that I did loans for in the 90s that call me to this day to ask me questions about things. And I saw it go to, right? Like there was a Super Bowl ad, push button, get mortgage. And then it seemed as if there was this sprint where it became, you weren't building a relationship, you now became a transaction. How can I make this as easy as possible to push it all through? And we stopped asking a lot of questions. And this has become very apparent in this market. Josh has just said, when the tide goes out, you figure out everybody that's not wearing pants. Well, as the market changes here, the difference for a lot of the people I talk to, closing one or two more loans a month is the difference between their company maybe making money, losing money. It's a next round of layoffs. It's a next, it's people being employed. It's your daughter being able to do ballet or not do ballet. It's a family vacation. So it's a razor thin line between success and kind of failure. And I just did a post today that 50% of salespeople are below average. However, when I go out and poll them, 9 out of 10 would tell me they're better than average. So somebody's lying there. And it's not intentionally. We just have a terrible time understanding kind of where we're at in the world or kind of our own, spot. So what I do is I created a company about 9-10 months ago where I say we're in the B2B business. We help bankers become brokers. And that's turnkey every step along the way. We've done it enough times now that we're getting it pretty dialed in. We've got like 3-4 people at any given time that are someplace in that process. And we're really figuring it out. Tough business model and not super scalable in that individuals are individuals and there's lots of moving parts. But also through all those conversations, I started finding out where people were lacking or what areas really people were struggling at. And I talked to this past week already, I've talked to people that wanted to become brokers that did 12 loans last year. I've got another guy that did over 250 loans as an individual with one loan officer assistant. Same market, different skill sets. Same market, right? Like 12 or 250, like in the same exact market, same area of the country. So it's crazy. So it boils down to the skills that we have. So I talk to a lot of people. I help mortgage companies, small brokerages, actually get some scale and free up some things. So lots of different parts. We talked last week with Scott Muska about our three S's, or our S3 system, right? That's, you've got skills, sales, and then you have systems. And super important, we're going to stay kind of inside of that framework here today. But really, we want to kind of take it from all of the stuff that happened, as I kind of see it as a negative of the push button, get mortgage world. Fintech came in there and it became this fintech revolution, and I'm seeing it switch back. And the one thing that I can tell you is that person that I had this conversation this week that did the 200 plus closings, 100% of their applications are done via a live phone call, somebody handwriting out the 1003. There is zero pushing of buttons to get an application. So just kind of keep that, you know, we had 7 years of a fintech revolution to make it easier. The people that are succeeding today are using the least tech, or they're actually using it to augment their business. So I'm going to kind of go from here. We'll kind of slide to the next slide and we'll just pick it up, right? And my goal here is that when you get done with this, you've got 1 or 2 things that will help you do a couple more closings. And hopefully, if you get to the point where you do enough closings, you're going to hire me at some point to help you grow your brokerage or to do something else. But we've got to kind of get everybody up to that point. So here is my next slide. I'm going this way. Here's the things that we're going to do today. We're going to cover the difference between qualifying questions and questions as far as becoming a loan advisor, and questions that your point of sale is not going to be able to ask. We're going to look at home ownership, not as something that ends with the closing, but your job as a loan advisor really needs to be to go in. The first closing is just the beginning of the journey. So we're going to look at that and why this finite mindset kills so many companies. And then there's more to what we do than just a product and a price. There's a problem and a possibility. So we're going to kind of stay inside of those frameworks. And also, if you have any questions at any time, just stop me. I talk way too much. So I'm aware of the problem. I try not to, I'm going to try and stay out of analogies, but that's also another problem. So we'll see where we can go from there.
I love analogies. Analogies are awesome.
Yeah, I love them too, until 80% of my conversations, analogies, and people tease me. I hate getting teased. Oh, but it's okay. So we're going to start with this, and I need a little bit of participation. So a case study number 1, I got Jimmy. He's 55 years old. He's looking for a 15-year mortgage. He's at a 33 DTI, makes plenty of money. His LTV's at 65. He owes about 230 in his unpaid balance. He's got W-2 for the last 2 years with Amazon, 755 FICO. And if we give him a 15-year today, we can save him roughly 1.5% on his interest rate. What do you do? Like, what's the next step for this guy? Do we have a next step? Like where do you take this? Is there any other information that you need? I mean, the guy's hot to trot to buy. I mean, send him out a link.
For me, I mean, what I'm looking here is what I think a lot of people would do is just send a link and say, okay, cool, I can give you a 1.5% better interest rate. And that's kind of the thing that people have always been doing. But more importantly, this person's 55 years old. He's probably retiring in the next 5 to 10 years. I don't know if he wants to have a really high mortgage payment or a lower mortgage payment with a slightly higher interest rate. I want to know what his retirement plans are.
And I think that's great. And right. And there's a whole list of questions, and you know what I'm going to talk about. So it's very easy to like get into that. But here's what I believe most of the industry does, especially seeing a refinance today when they haven't seen a lot. They get super excited. Hey, you know what, Jimmy, I'm going to make this super easy for you. I'll give you a quote without even pulling your credit. We're going to make it as simple as possible. I can verify your income. I can do all these things, push of a button, super easy. We're a broker. We close in 10 days. I got, this guy over here, telling me this. We're going to do it super fast. And I'm going to send you a link, fill it out. We'll get you in process today. And I think that's how most of our industry operates. And I just want to kind of go, and that's not a bad scenario. I'll give you some more details on him. He's got 21 years left on his existing mortgage. Let's say he's at 6.5%. We can take him down to 5 on a 15-year. Granted, these rates are just make believe, but that's what I'm playing with here today. Can take him from 6.5 down to 5%. And right, his current payment, you save him like $8 a month, and you shave 6 years off of his loan. Super easy sale. It's what 9 out of 10 of your partners are going to sell. Now I'm going to take you to kind of the next slide. And that's the case study with the rest of the story. I'm old, so I remember a guy named Paul Harvey that had this thing that would say the rest of the story. So I want to give you guys a little bit more of the rest of the story on this and let you know why that initial sale may have actually been dead wrong, even though it's right and it came in what he was asking for. And this is why, like, some people get very intimidated about AI and those kind of things coming in and doing your job. 100% AI can do everything up to this point, do it flawlessly, probably with better word tracks, quicker responses than anything you can do. Here's where it is not there yet. Here's some things, the rest of the story about Jimmy. And I've got a whole bunch of stuff written down here. So Jimmy's been with Amazon for 2 years, a little over 2 years, making good money. He likes it. But the reason that Jimmy's with Amazon, Jimmy got taken out by COVID. Jimmy was a business owner. COVID crushed his business. He had to go to work at Amazon. He'd been self-employed for the last 15 years. Jimmy has $58,000 in his savings account because his savings was his business. The guy'd been self-employed. He'd worked hard. His business he was going to sell. That was his retirement. It's wiped out. He's got, I gave you these stats. Some other things about him. He's really scared. He's got kids. He's got a family. He doesn't know where he's going to be at. But right now he's kind of banking on, he's got 10 more years in Amazon. He'd still like to retire somewhere in the 65 to 70 range. He'd like to, stop doing this day in, day out. So with that in mind, I can still give him a 30-year mortgage. I could do it 1% better, maybe not quite the same savings, but I want to show you some of these things where it kind of moves from just being a commodity, right? Like, you're a rate and a fee up to this point. Your rate and fee is all that matters. And there's thousands of people on the internet that are willing to undercut you on your rate and fee. So if everything that you do is about the rate and fee, you're going to get crushed because somebody will do it cheaper. But I now know all these things about Jimmy. I'm now building a relationship with Jimmy. So he was self-employed. I want to ask him some questions about his 33% debt to income ratio. Like, is he working a bunch of overtime? Does he foresee that continuing? Is it sustainable for him to continue that for the next 15 years? What will happen when he pays off his house? Like, where's that going to take him? So I'm asking kind of the next question beyond. So I already know I can qualify him for a loan. So the qualification, you need to stop asking qualifying questions and start asking actual sales questions or advising questions. So I just want to give you kind of some interesting tidbits here. His original mortgage was at $270,000, was at 6.5%, took it out 4 years ago. He was higher than the prevailing interest rates at the time. That's a really good question to ask. Like, why didn't you refinance when rates were lower? Well, he was self-employed. His business was getting crushed. So as the rest of the world took advantage of a 3% interest rate, he couldn't because his business was getting crushed. So again, right, he's got this fear factor. There's a scarcity mentality there. If you understand that, you can sell him better. Some other neat things. He works at Amazon and he's 55. Can anybody tell me what a 55-year-old man at Amazon with 58K in savings should be doing?
Well, he's probably working in the warehouse since he just started.
Yeah, he's a warehouse driver, something like that. I want to give you just some neat things. Amazon matches 50 cents on the dollar on their 401k.
Mm-hmm.
What can you do if you're over 50 years old on your 401k?
Pull it out.
There's a catch-up period where you can actually contribute more in than what you could as just a less than 50-year-old person. So he's got a unique opportunity here where Amazon, for every dollar he puts in, he gets $1.50 back. And it's pre-taxed. So $1 pre-taxed is really like making $1.30. So you start looking at these things, and maybe there's an option for him. If his goal is to not have to work so hard in his 70s, maybe having a boatload of money in his 401k is a better way of going about doing that than just the 30-year fixed. And I've got some links here, right? Like to the Amazon, maybe it won't hyperlink. But you can go, there's a website and there's lots of places that you can go and find every one of your clients, bless you, by the way, every one of your clients' companies, what their 401k matches are, what it looks like, right? You become a trusted advisor, knows about these things. An order taker doesn't care. Debbie, the time life operator, doesn't care about your 401k. They only care about what DU findings say and how quickly can I close you. I'm just going to give you, I pulled up a bunch of numbers and kind of ran some stuff. If he takes the difference between the 30-year and the 15-year from a payment standpoint is a little over $500 a month. And there's a match of, right, 50 cents on the dollar, and that's pre-tax money. So his payments outflow don't have to change at all, what he's doing, and he can now contribute $750 a month into his 401k. Guess what? At the end of 15 years, he's gotten his 401k. If it just goes, I put it in at 8%, which if you just invested in S&P, you're well below, like you're making more than that. So I was pretty conservative. He's got about $290,000 in his retirement plan, and he can pay off his mortgage for $200. So he's got 90K more than he would have ever had on the 15-year. That's called winning, right? That's like winning at life. That's like setting someone up to be a successful home owner and successful through life. And some other things, if he doesn't do anything, he still owes 165 or 170 grand and still hasn't done anything for his 401k. So the option of not doing something has just been eliminated. Now the only option is, do I give him what he called for the 15-year or the 30-year? But nobody else is selling this. So there's just so many reasons and so many different ways. And I'm happy to walk you through the math, and like people that I work with, we go deep on these things, understanding all of the moving parts. Just understand there is a much better program for him probably than that 15-year, regardless of what the rate is. Even if the rate's right, even a quarter better. He gets somebody, you know, that was playing college football 2 years ago. It's got an NMLS number of 2,400,000. That's now a mortgage expert and right. And wants to undercut your rate. Go ahead, undercut my rate. You're not going to be able to undercut the value that I just brought. So that's, I mean, and I'm passionate about this, and the people I work with, like, I am so bullish on them doing more in this market because the bar is so low today. Most of the industry worked in an environment where all they've done is sold a refinance below 4%. And they struggle today, not because they didn't accomplish something 2 years ago. They struggle because they're not very good at sales. Right? Say what you want about, like, that's a tough market, whatever. It's only tough if you're not that good. There are still people succeeding. And yeah, maybe it's not I'm going to make $1 million a year, you know, and golf every Friday kind of market, but it's still a market that you can excel. I see people doing it every single day. And yeah, it's tough, but it's not impossible. And I talk to a lot of companies. They've been in business for 4 years. In business for 4 years, you're not a startup anymore. Startup is an excuse, right? You're just a company that's been in business for 4 years that doesn't execute, and you claim to be a startup. Like, it's an excuse. It's not a reason. So really just a bunch of stuff there. And we could go deeper into this, and I could talk about this forever, but I'm going to go to the next slide. And the next slide is this, that anything that you do, if you can transition, I don't know, does anybody have questions there or something they would add? I know I have some very seasoned people on here.
So I had just a quick comment, which was the idea that, like, even like just noticing, and with that guy, with Jimmy, I think his name was Jimmy, saying he wants to retire. I don't think I saw what the value of his property or how much equity he had, but one of the things that I've noticed, even when I was a loan officer, which I was for about 5 years, is that when you change the deal, it doesn't matter if he talked to 5 people before then, and he was just only talking to you because he wanted to shop rate and term. As soon as you change it to something that actually aligns more with what he wants, you become that trusted advisor. And it makes it really hard for him to want to go with anybody else because you've created that extra brand equity for him. Right. And so the difference in a 0.25% interest rate, yeah, some people might end up going and shopping it with the new deal and the new structure and the new things that you did. But 9 times out of 10, they won't do it. They'll just be like, okay, send me the appraisal information. Let's go. Let's do this application based on that option, right? Giving them another option that might work better for them.
Yeah, exactly. And then if they are going to go out and shop, guess what you just did? And worst case scenario, you stop them from doing anything with anyone else, right? Like, you've backed them up, and then you can place a certain level of doubt. Like, hey, when you talk to Josh, like, why'd that Josh guy not present this? Does he not care? Like, was he not listening to, like, where you're trying to go? Like, I understand, right? Like, I'm in my 50s myself. I'm scared as hell about retirement. I get it. Right. So like, it's like, yeah, that Josh guy, like he's a turd. Yeah, no, he's terrible. Like, why mess with that guy? Like, he's probably out drinking, craft beers with a nose ring. Like, who knows? Right. Like, identify with the people and move, get them more into it.
Like, does he even have a 6-digit NMLS number?
I have a 4-digit NMLS number and I'm damn proud of that. So like, people say, well, what's yours? I'm like, oh no, that is mine. Oh, the company you're dealing with is 2 million higher than me. So I can do that. Very few people can. 6399, if anybody cares to look it up. Pretty cool. So we're going to slide to the next slide here. And I really want to encourage everyone on here to stop talking about product and pricing. Product and price is very easy to shop. Problems and possibilities are not. So that guy's problem is that he's 55 years old, doesn't know what he's going to do about retiring, doesn't know how he's going to provide for his family, doesn't know what happens after he passes away. It's like, does his wife become homeless? I mean, who knows? But he's got a lot of concerns and things that keep him up at night. So talk about the problems and the possibility. And this only can happen. It's not the 16 questions that you fill out on your point of sale. You've got to identify the problems inside of their current state. Everybody has a current state. Explain to them the future state, where you want to take them. There's a gap between where they are today and where you want to take them. However big that gap is today, your job in sales, if you're good at it, is to make that gap larger. The bigger the gap, the bigger the problems that you solve, the easier it is to sell. So identify the problem, talk about the future state, see how big the gap is between where they sit today and where they want to go. How big can you make that gap? And just understand the bigger the gap, the easier it is to sell. And this is why it's very easy to sell personal training to somebody that just had a heart attack. Right? It's why diets, right? Like people understand these things. So move from, I don't ask qualifying questions, I ask sales questions. And here's just a bunch. We could go through a ton of scenarios. But every client that you talk to, potential client, potential friend, potential lifelong client, they have additional things, right? I see people, I just saw a situation the other day, had an investor that's looking to buy 5 investment properties over the next 12 months, tight on cash. Person was selling him 30% down because it saved him 1.5 points. But it literally crushed the ability for him to buy 2 other houses by putting all that extra money down. So like, you're not even listening to what their goals are. People that are looking at purchasing a home for their parents, starting a new business, people that have had overtime change. Has there been a change of work, life, just stuff happens. So every one of these people have unique problems and possibilities. It's your job to uncover those. We could go into a whole bunch, not going to, just understand that they all have them there. And the mortgage world moved to this thing, like with the fintech revolution, that it all became about these things, right? My 1003, my IRLA, my MISMO file, my IPAC. That's a Quicken thing. A PAL, IPAC is income, property, assets, credit. PAL is property, assets, income, liabilities, right? Like it's all about what questions do I need to ask you to qualify. I got my lead sheet with only the bare minimum that I need to qualify. My POS, let me send you this link out, and then just the fintech revolution as a whole. It has a place, and it's by all means, like that person that I told you about that was closing all the loans, doing it purely, without using any links. They need to do some tech stuff, right? They're being hindered at how far they can go, but it needs to be tech with touch and not just tech. And too many places tried to move to just this pure tech, like, let me verify your assets with Plaid so I don't have to ask you about them. Let me get a work number so we don't have to ever talk about income. Let me do all these things. Well, that market today, there's like 2 out of every, X number of loans are doing a rate and term refi with the PIW. So these things are great. Just figure out where to put them into your business. There is a place for them. It's just not the end all be all. And these are the companies that you can find in the news that are going out of business, right? They're all over the place. Very easy to find stories of companies that tried to go pure tech. Like they're public. There's a company called Better, I think, that didn't do very well. They were like not super great in the headlines. So a lot of things. I got this here. And since we're mortgage broker builders and we have toolboxes and stuff, I like to talk about tools. And if you can shift from the mindset of, I want to ask you the bare minimum questions I need to qualify, you can flip it to the mindset of, let me ask you as many questions so I can get as many tools in the toolbox to be able to solve all of your problems. That's what you're doing on your sales call. You want to fill that individual toolbox with as many tools for your client to be able to apply, to be able to help them over the lifelong journey of home ownership. And you need to know those things. So think of every client as a toolbox. If all you're doing is rate and term, like product and pricing, you have a hammer and a saw. Let's hope you don't need a screwdriver because you never asked about it. So you want to get as many tools. I like to refer to it as tools, or, before the world was afraid of guns, I talk about having like a 6-shooter. And when you get off the phone with your client, you wanted to have 5 or 6 bullets that were unique to them to load into there to be able to use as sales things to add value. But fill your toolbox on every single one of your clients. Any questions there? Anything? Hopefully that analogy works. And like I said, I tried to stay away from them because I love analogies. But you just think about that. You're chucking that toolbox as full as possible with data and different things about that client. So I'm going to move to our next slide here. And some things that I just want to talk about is, one, acting like a pro. And we started this call out saying that 50% of all salespeople are below average. 50% of all the quarterbacks in the NFL are below average too. Right? If you think about it, there's, I don't know how many quarterbacks, 75, 50% of them are below average. And there are some very unique things between the ones that are great and the ones that aren't. The third string backup on the, San Diego Chargers is probably not putting in and acting the same way as Patrick Mahomes. I bet his game day ritual is different. I bet the actions that he take are different every day. And the thing is, when I say act like a pro, the knowledge gap is typically not that much different. I can talk to somebody, if I use fitness, I can talk to anybody that's super fit or anybody that's super not fit. They can probably give me the same advice. Eat less, move more. If I eat less and move more, I can become more fit. They know the knowledge. Now, actually executing on it becomes a different thing, but you've got to act like a pro. And pros watch game film and they do those things. So if I go back to that speed square, you've got the skills. Most of you actually understand the skills already. What questions I need to ask, why I need to ask them. Where you get sidetracked is as soon as something goes off of script, you don't know how to pivot back to it. You haven't had enough reps to be able to have those conversations and do them really freely. I remember one of my very first sales calls was at Rock Financial, which became Quicken Loans, was sitting there. This thing came in, you took chimes, like the phone to ring overhead, and the fastest person to grab it got it. And we advertised that Rocket Mortgage advertised once a week in the Detroit Free Press, a half-page ad. And that was all the marketing that was done. And I picked up this call and the client asked me a question I didn't know, and I literally froze. I hadn't had enough reps to be able to handle an objection. And I just froze. And luckily this guy bailed me out that was next to me and like grabbed the headset. But you got to run through the reps. And then you need to have people there holding you accountable to doing these things. So if your sales are struggling, find somebody, do a hot seat. Do things that you did when you were brand new. Overcome objections. Hey, your rate's too high. You know what? I can completely appreciate that. Thousands of people have actually shopped our rates. The internet is my playground. If I'm not competitive, you think I'd even be in business to talk to you? Let's go ahead and continue looking at this, right? You've got to have these things that can just roll off of your tongue. If you don't, you're not acting like a pro. Your W-2 is a direct reflection of the skill and the effort you put into it. I don't care what you did in 1997, 2006. You got to have the skills today. You could have been the best in the world. You're not today. You may be below average. And people, right, we suck at evaluating our own spot, right? 50% of all salespeople are below average. If I pull 10 of them, 9 out of 10 will tell me they're above average. Again, there's a disconnect. Try to scale the unscalable. You as a human being, your life experiences, having a conversation with you is not something that's scalable. If you're not leaning into that and doing things like that and talking about your own experiences, they're going to go and find somebody else. If you're just a rate and a fee, at least be a rate and a fee that they like, that they can relate to, that you can share some things with. The more someone likes you, they won't necessarily only buy off of that, but it definitely makes it a little bit easier. All things equal, I'm going to buy from the person that I like a little bit more than the person that I don't. So do that. That's where your social media and all those things come in. People are looking at that. It's an unscalable thing. Everybody's different, but you will have a niche. Skills are forever. Just remember that. Time you spend today learning how to edit video, become a better salesperson. Any of those things that you do, it's a skill that you can never leave. And I have a very firm belief why I'm doing everything that I'm doing in the broker world. I have a firm belief that by the end of 2025, 50% of all loans are going to close via wholesale channels. That's going to be brokers. That's going to be different than what it was. That's going to be about what closed via a wholesale channel back 2005, 2006. 50 to 60% of all loans closed through a broker channel or wholesale channel back then. We had a crash. We had tech. We had all these things that disrupted the market to where it was less than 10. It's now back to 25%. Rocket right now, right? Like a lot of Rocket TPO's business is being accounted for their wholesale channel. I don't know if it's 30, 40% of revenue. It's a large chunk. The big behemoth that would have been fighting this is now in that corner. They're just shutting down all their stuff with like their agents and these onesie twosies that were doing stuff. Like they're kind of going all in on this model. So if Rocket's there, UWM's there, everybody else is pushing that model. Well, I want to make sure that the people that are out there are equipped to do it. And right, skills are forever. Life is sales. The mortgage banker that I see in 2025 is going to have a couple of things. They're going to have a portable personal brand. The brand will be you more so than the company that you work for. And there's a woman out there, her name's Jennifer Beeson. She's got like 80,000 followers on YouTube. And I watch all of her stuff. She has a brand. She works at Guaranteed Rate, but it doesn't matter where she works. Her team does like $600 million a year of closings. I guarantee, like she has thousands of leads coming in. So I see the banker of the future. You're going to be a portable personal brand. Guaranteed Rates got to win, do things to keep her there. It's not the other way around where you begged for a job. So that's going to be flipped around. People are going to maintain their own databases. People are going to, your social media becomes your database. I don't care if you work at Cross Country Mortgage. If you have 250,000 followers on your TikTok, that leaves with you. Cross Country Mortgage doesn't own them. So everything that you're doing today is setting yourself up to kind of be this next generation loan officer. And it's going to be digital first. It's going to be you out there in a different way. And again, I find it super exciting and a greater opportunity to develop wealth in that place than ever before. So super exciting stuff there. Next slide. This is kind of the last one here, but a finite versus infinite mindset. And I think that very often, and I see it all over Facebook, I see the things, LinkedIn, you know, 7-day close. Woo-hoo. I got my 5-star review, and then that's where it ends. And really, a 7-day close with a great rate, good service, you return their call and got a 5-star review. That should be the ante to play. And that should be the ante to play from day one. The second you say hello, it's building from there. You don't get a 5-star review because you ask for it at the end. You get a 5-star review because you earn it from the beginning. And a finite mindset would say, I'll do a loan today for somebody. I'll do it for half of the commission because I know I'm going to get to do it again in 12 months if I take care of them. And I know I'm going to get to do it again in 2 years. I'm going to take care of their kids. And I'm not looking at it as, oh, I'm going to only make $2,000 today. I look at it as this client has a potential to make me 50 grand over the next 15 years. And shifting that mindset will change the way you do things. So you're not in it. You're not in sales to the end of the month. I don't care what your sales leader report says. you're in sales until the end of time, until the end of your time. And everything is sales. So finite versus infinite mindset, and way too many companies blow it here. Oh, we got it closed. Great. I'll send them a Thanksgiving Day card and something stupid at Easter. And then you get upset why people don't do business with you. I have a bunch of stories. There's all this tech out there now. And when people come to me, especially if your company's been like did away with, or you didn't do a good job of keeping your database, I now have ways to go back and, like, let's say, look at all of your closings from 2018, 2019. I can very easily pull up every closing you had in that year. And we can go through and look at the address, the client. And there's, on this one tech that I use, there's a little green circle that says the client's still in that loan. And it's very funny when I go through and I sit down with somebody and we're trying to, like, kind of build out their first 10 closings as a broker. Like, oh, let's just reach out to your closed clients. Oh yeah, I remember them. Well, they did business without me. Well, why would that be? And they get upset. I'm like, don't be upset. Don't be upset at the client for doing, you dropped the ball. Be upset with yourself for not actually doing what you committed to them, to being their lender for life, or whatever your trademark thing is. You didn't follow up. All you were was a rate and a fee. And so they moved on to the next rate and fee. They did exactly what you wanted them to do. You didn't provide them any value beyond. But it's crazy how upset people get when they see that little circle is not green, it's red. That means they closed with someone else. It's like they got cheated on, right? And you didn't. So just make sure, right? The closing is just the beginning, and your goal is to set somebody up for a successful home ownership. And this means, especially when dealing with first-time home buyers, this means making sure that they have enough money to go out and buy trash cans, that you don't leave them destitute to where they can't afford ketchup, right? And you see it happen all the time, that they, like, there's a bigger thing there that's happening. And if you're not asking questions like, do you plan on having kids? Is anything going to change in your income? You put them in the wrong program, or you don't advise them of what the next steps are. And 60 days later, 90 days later, you talk to them like, hey, so how's things going with the house? I had no idea how expensive things are. I might have to sell it. And you're like, if you ever get that, like, it feels really bad, and it should, because you did wrong by your client. If you didn't set them up, even if you got a great closing, you didn't set them up for successful home ownership. And there are a lot of tools and different things. We've got a tool that we're working on right now where people are going to be able to go in, and we're going to monitor them for you over the life of the loan, let people know their credit scores for free and a bunch of stuff. But just know that this is your responsibility as a loan advisor, is to stick with them throughout. And the closing is just the beginning. There's tons of tech tools that you can do. I think HomeBot's a great one. Like, there's ways to stay in front of your clients. If you do want to do HomeBot, reach out. I've got a coupon code to get you money off of it. We've got a lot of coupon codes and a lot of different partners that we have that I try to make sure. Again, my goal of people that I work with is that you do better than average, and that you close more loans, because I'm in your camp, than if you're, running around on your own. But keep that mindset. The commission, the first commission, is just that. It's the first commission. And it's too many people, companies as a whole, they stop there. So does anybody have any questions? Anything that you'd want to add? I love questions. Okay. That's what I thought. If you do have questions and you don't want to ask them here, we have a couple of different ways. So, this whole, like, being a broker builder thing, like, I'm at it for like 6 to 8 months now, and everything has morphed, right? Like, as soon as you go down and you think you're solving a problem, you find the next problem. And so we started, right, just launching brokers. And then that turned into, there's a lot of bankers that don't have the tools to become a broker. They lack the skills to go out there and become successful. So you got to build those skills. So we've got a couple of different groups, right? Some of you may be here from, like, Facebook or whatever, but we've got a group inside of this thing called Circles, which is like an educational community. And I'll let Josh explain it a little more, but if you get value from this, you'll only get more value from being part of our whole group. And at some point, the plan is we're going to start charging for these things. Like, there's people that do less than this that charge, they charge a lot. They'll charge you $1,000 a month to get on 2 calls like this and something. Like, we want to be able to provide you something, and we will charge at some point for this stuff, but we want to be able to provide you an ROI that's like through the roof. So, and if I can't do that, right, and Josh pushes me on this all the time, he's like, John, like, you can sell this right now. I'm like, no, I'm not adding enough value. Oh, but you're adding 26 years of experience and, billions of closed loan volume and all kinds of problems that they're not going to have. I'm like, yeah, but I'm not adding enough value. So, right, like maybe it's something on my end, but please join the circle group. Josh, is there anything else you want to add there?
Yeah, I just want to walk people through a little bit of what that is. So one of the most powerful things you can do in any industry is be around peers that are like-minded, that are trying to do the same things that you're doing. And we're creating this to be more of a community aspect. It's actually a new type of thing called community as a service. And so as we move forward, there's eventually going to be a membership fee and a membership charge and all of those kinds of things. But one of the most valuable pieces of a community is the foundational community. So what we're looking for right now is our founding members to come in and join us inside of our community app. It's called circle.so. I'm going to share a link below this video. So if you're watching this on like our blog or something like that, there's going to be a link below to join. I'll share it in the Zoom chat as well. But inside of this, it's really what we call the LO foxhole. And the idea is that, you want to be around other people as if you were in a foxhole in a war, because you are. And so who would you want to be in a foxhole with? You probably want to be in a foxhole with the LOs of the future, like John talked about today. People who are committed to building a personal brand, who are committed to being loan advisors, who are committed to owning their databases, who are committed to making sure that they create lifelong relationships with their clients as opposed to one-off transactions. Right? This is no longer going to be a transactional world, because if somebody wanted a transaction, they would just go to a Quicken Loans. That's where you can get your transaction. They don't want a transaction. They want a relationship with the person that does the thing for them. Right? Like, how many times do you sit around a Thanksgiving dinner or something like that, and you might be talking about buying a new house, or you might be talking about something that you're trying to do, and everybody always loves to say, hey, I got my guy. You need to talk to my guy. For me, it's my sister-in-law. Right? She's the person that we refer all of our business to, because that's our family person, right? Every family has one. So if you're inserting yourself into those conversations by adding value and being a loan advisor and doing all those things, you need to be in a community as well of other people who are committed to doing the same things and committed to building brands, committed to understanding the new world of social media, the new world of content creation, all of the tech and tools, and making sense of all of the shiny objects that you probably have flying at you. So John has a ton of really amazing relationships with tech tools and CRMs and POSs and all of these different things. But the one thing that I tell people all the time in business is, when you have all of these shiny objects flying at you, it's really hard to know what to do and when the right time is to do the right thing. Because you might get, distracted by some shiny object coming at you, and it might work really, really well for a lot of people. But that doesn't mean that it's going to work really well for you based on exactly where you are right now and what you're trying to accomplish over the next week or 2 weeks or 5 weeks. And you could end up wasting a crap load of time because you didn't have, somebody in your corner that you could just ask. So I'm going to share the link to that right now, and maybe I'll share my screen just for a second to show you what this actually is. So inside of this application, we have intro videos and welcomes. We're going to put all of our free training and events right here on the left-hand side. We have all of the tools that we're creating. We create all of these really amazing PDFs and tools. And I think the last one we created was called the Local Authority Builder, which actually teaches you how to go out in your local market and interview local business owners to become an authority in your local market to build your brand. And then in addition to that, for any of the people that are in our program and want to learn how to become brokers, we're going to be offering additional programs beyond that require a lot more of our time. So obviously there are investments there, but ultimately our main mission right now is to build loan advisors of the future. And we're going to do that through providing this community for free for right now. So I'd highly, highly recommend getting in for free right now while you can. There's this page that I created where you just enter your name, phone number, and email address, and you'll get instant access to that community. And then any events that we put on are going to show up in here. There's an app on your phone. There's a messaging thing. You can get direct access to John. You can get direct access to me. It's really freaking cool. So I'd love to see you guys in there if you're watching this. And then I will share the link to join the foxhole right now.
And the last thing that I would just like to add is, right, all of these things. And my goal is that outside of there's like services that I'm paying for, that the founders kind of like people that are in on the beginning, like I don't ever want to have to necessarily charge you unless, right, like I'm paying stuff on the other end, right? Like you're in from the beginning. And I don't know where that dollar amount will be. And my wife will probably, right? Like at some point I have outside forces that force me to do things. But I want this to be a place that really adds a tremendous amount of value. And I know that if you add enough value and you put it out there, right? I watched a movie thing called The Secret years ago. Ended up buying 1,000 copies and sharing them with everybody at Quicken Loans, right? We like the whole company bought this video and played it for everybody. But what you put out there comes back. And so if you can do this as like help, like invite friends, like try to help us grow our community through sharing, anything that you can do to help push it along is greatly appreciated. And and I truly, I definitely appreciate that. And if you've got questions, concerns, I've literally seen every CRM. Like I know about a lot of stuff and can definitely help people move faster with me than without. So reach out. There's lots of ways to get in touch with us. And that's really it. Just, together we can all win and move a little bit faster. So awesome. Well, hopefully this was helpful. If you can just shoot me a note, like if you do have any questions, if you thought it sucked, if you thought it was good, feedback's a gift, whether it be good or bad. I'd love to just hear any key takeaways that you had, things that maybe you'd want to hear about. Some things that we've got coming up are some stuff on video editing and building a personal brand. We've got some things coming up about lead gen and buying of leads. Some different stuff about website builders, how to go about, kind of creating some of that tech stuff. So if there is a topic or a subject or something that you want more info on, let me know. It's very easy for us to put something like that together. Cool. Well, hey, I appreciate you all. We got 10 minutes here. I'm going to give you all back a little bit of time in your day. And thank you very much for joining us.